Hi, if you're like me, you get your fair share of emails. A lot of them have to be turned into tasks, things to do. Some of them might have links in them, so stuff you have to read. Maybe it's a blog post, so you should comment on it, or maybe you should tweet it, or maybe it was Twitter that sent you the link in the first place, and you want to share it on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever. Basically, you've got this big soup of stuff, right? Emails and other things coming at you from social media in your inbox. And there are pages which you might need to do something with now or later, and you've got to organize all of this. And I've been wrestling with how to handle this for quite a while because, like I said, I want to store this stuff. I might need it later. I might want to share some of it. I'm going to need to remember to do something with it, which means I'm going to have to find it. And I might need to find it tomorrow, but it might be next year. So how do you handle all of that? There are tools out there, of course, loads of them. Evernote is one. I tried that, and I tried SpringPad, and there are loads of others. The problem I had with that was that these tools are really big, complicated, very well organized machines, a little bit like the Large Hadron Collider here, but they do things their way, and I couldn't quite get it to work the way I wanted to do things. So I elected for this much better picture, the Rube Goldberg device. Basically, the idea here being that instead of trying to get everything out of one piece of software, you use lots of different little pieces of software, each of which does one thing really, really well, and you link them together. And that's become really possible with tools recently. And the nice thing about this picture is that as new tools appear, you can just slot them in there. It's adaptable, it's flexible, it's robust. This is my work in progress, and the reason I'm sharing this is that I'd really love to find out from other people how they organize their inboxes, their to-do lists, their content, and how they manage this for their online presence. So this is how I do it, okay? It's basically, we've got 4 major processes. There's scan, put stuff into queues, store it, and share it. And all of that underpinned by a process. I use GTD, Getting Things Done. I mean, I've read the book, right? I don't do anything as sophisticated as this, this wonderful infographic. Mine's got a really rough and ready approach, but it works for me. Everybody has their own system. Anyway, the thing is that the first phase is to scan stuff. This is when you look at all your inboxes in the GTD system. Now, this is the only phase where I really use my mobile phone a lot because it's very good for scanning stuff. Obviously, with my mobile phone, I can check my email and my social media accounts, but it's a really great way when you're on the move of capturing ideas. So other inboxes in my mobile phone include the voice recorder. If I'm listening to a podcast, I may hit pause, hit voice recorder, record something. Then I need to look at that later on, so I need a task for that. Plus, you might take photographs of things to remember. I also happen to use the Note 2. Great phone, couldn't recommend it highly enough. Has a stylus, so I can scribble stuff. And so I have one of these papyrus notes for almost every edition for immediate release. So there's lots of inboxes in my phone, and on the desktop, of course, as well, email and social media mainly. But what are you doing here? Well, you're looking at all these places, these things where you've collected stuff, or stuff has collected for you. You don't collect your email, it comes to you. And you look at it. And basically there's 2 things that you end up with. You end up with web pages, and of them you identify the things you want to process later. And so I put them into Pocket, which is an online app. It's a library. It means you can read it when you're offline, when you're online, on your phone, on your desktop, whatever. I'm just highlighting those online resources which I'm going to do something with later. I forgot to mention, obviously I don't put anything into any of these queues if I can do it within 2 minutes. That's one of the rules of GTD. If you look in your inboxes and you see something which you can do, then in a couple of minutes, then do it. So you retweet, you reply to emails. These queues are for stuff which you need a bit more time to think about before you can act on it. Okay, end of parentheses. And of course there are tasks. I use Do It, which is another online tool on my phone, on my desktop, and even when I'm offline, it works. Now, if a detail here, you can email yourself tasks. So if there's an email that arrives and you just forward it to your Do It, it will appear in your Do It in folder. But you can also just create a task very quickly on your phone or on your desktop simply by tapping and typing. Anyway, that's just the queue. So what we've done here is we've taken that huge chaos of all these things and boiled it down to Pocket and tasks. Now the tasks integrate directly into my GTD system, so I don't want to talk about that right away. In my GTD system, I have a task to look in my Pocket, and I add tags to it on Digo. This is where I store stuff. So this only works with online resources. Digo is like Delicious. I used to use Delicious I started using Delicious in 2002, and I moved to Digo when there was rumor that it was going to get sold. It's basically the same thing. You tag stuff, so you never ever lose it. But there's something you can do more. If you add certain tags to Digo, you can activate some recipes on if this then that. That's the tool that brings all of these things together. For example, if I add in Digo the tag Do It, if this then that emails that page, if you like, to my Do It file, so it becomes a task. If I add other tags, like, I'll publish it to my hub. Now, my hub is currently at Tumblr. My hub is, this is a website I'd like to build one day, and I'll probably do a post about it one day. Essentially, it's a central web space where you put what you think, what you like, and what you do, your portfolio. This is particularly about what you like. So when I add the tag like to something on Digo, if this then that publishes it on my Tumblr account currently. If I add the tag yampost or yamlike, if this then that puts it onto my client's Yammer account, because I might want to share this with my client. If I add the tag iLabs, it goes into my client's intranet, which is called Intrasoft Labs. And these themselves are secondary queues for manually posting stuff onto their external online presence as well. So Digo is pretty important. I can share stuff from it by using if this then that, but it's there for good forever, and I'll always be able to find these resources later. There's one other tag I do, later, L8R, and that just creates a menu within Digo, the menu associated with the tag later, and that again is a secondary queue. And from there I will do manual posts to my personal spaces or my client spaces, public or private. So that's basically it, but it wouldn't work at all if it wasn't underpinned by a getting things done process. And so I have here, this is a screenshot of, it's called Speed Dial. It's an extension on Firefox and Chrome, and I have a Speed Dial page which is called Morning Routine. And in Morning Routine I have a link that goes to my Do It space, my Do It tool, and there's a project there called Morning Routine. And in that project, a number of tasks automatically create themselves because they're scheduled to do so. Recurrent tasks. Some of them are created every day, some of them happen only on weekdays, some of them happen once a week, some of them happen on specific days. I'll give you an example. Every morning I have a task to look at a Twitter list called Overnighters. Overnighters are a bunch of tweeps who live and work in the USA, or at least North America. So they're tweeting whilst I'm sleeping, and so the first thing in the morning is I look at my Twitter list called Overnighters and I see, is there anything useful there? It's one of my inboxes. Every Wednesday I look into Delicious. I look into the FIR, for immediate release, podcast pages on Delicious, because they tag all of the stuff that they talk about in their podcast, and I'm probably going to find that interesting. So every Wednesday I look at that. I do other things on Tuesdays and other things on Thursdays. I have another task to look in my in folder and actually classify those tasks. I mean, these are tasks which may have been created by Digo, and if this then that, or I may have just forwarded some emails, but they're in my in folder. They need to be assigned to projects, they need to be assigned to today or tomorrow or scheduled, or put them in waiting or someday. These are various statuses which you use in getting things done. I have another task, look at Pocket and tag stuff, of course, off to my client spaces, but also I have a specific task to look at the later queue and do some manual posting as well. What else? Here are some of the tasks that I have, as you see. Scanning the inboxes and putting stuff into Do It or Pocket. Empty my in folder within Do It. Defining the day, as well as a couple of other tasks which I usually put in there to remind myself to not be such a grouch. So anyway, there's lots of other things in my morning routine speed dial here. You've got the major inboxes, they're all there, and that's basically it. As I said, it's a work in progress. I'd love to get your ideas. How do you manage your stuff? You can find a post with this video embedded on my Tumblr, and please leave your comments there. That will be grand. Thanks very much.